Hiya kids, this is Ivan, and this is the fourth installment in the Saving Throws series, where hopefully we wrap this thing up. Now, first off, I'm going to talk about saving throw difficulties. I think it's kind of instructive to look at these classic saves in terms of the difficulty level that a normal guy needs to save versus these things, and to compare that to your characters. And that's also easy to compare to other games when you do this. So I'm going to go through these tables really fast for first edition and basic. So for a normal guy, to save versus poison, paralysis, and death magic, you need a 16. Versus petrifaction and polymorph, a 17. Versus rod, staff, wand, an 18. Versus breath weapon, a 20. It's hard. And versus spells, a 19. Now in basic, it's a little bit easier for Joe Average. Versus death ray and poison, he only needs a 14. Versus magic wands, a 15. Versus petrifaction and polymorph, 16. And versus either spells or breath weapons, he only needs a 17. Now in basic, it's a little bit different because basic characters, when they first start out, don't save that much better than normal guys do. Now, it's not really fair to compare basic to first edition entirely because basic characters go all the way up to 36th level, where all their saves are 2. Whereas in first edition, characters top out, the fighter tops out at 17, the cleric tops out at 19, and the magic user and thief top out at 21 in terms of their saves progressing, and that's it for them. But in basic, the characters start out maybe about 2 or 3 places better than Joe Average, whereas in first edition, you start out anywhere from 2 to 7 places better. You know, if you're a first level cleric, you know, all you need to do to figure out your plus, so to speak, is to subtract, you know, your save from the Joe Average. So, you know, your first level cleric, saving versus poison, Joe Average needs 16, you need 10. You have a plus 6 getting right out of the gate as a first level cleric, saving versus poison. If you're a first level magic user, you have a plus 7 saving versus spells compared to Joe Average. You are big heroes. You are the tough guys. You are adventurers. I think this is kind of cool. That you don't get too many kicks and pluses and neat stuff right out of the gate in first edition, but you start out with really good saves, and you are kind of differentiated between other people based on that. You are adventurers. This is neat. One of the things that first edition and basic lack is any kind of adjustment to saving throws based on caster level. And I was in some discussions with people on some other forums talking about the difference between some of the saves in classic D&D versus some things like Pathfinder, where you might do a ranged touch attack. There's not a saving throw involved. And the percentage chances to hit this guy are a little bit different than the percentage chances of a saving throw he might make. That was a little interesting. I don't really want to use ranged touch attacks, but they also sometimes use caster level as an influence on what your save might be. And I was a little upset that we don't really have those in first edition for like high-level casters. However, somebody pointed out to me in a forum that in fact second edition has an alternate rule you can use for high-level casters where you can kind of take a subtraction from people's saves based on your level. So up to 12th level there's no adjustment, but 13th level you get to have them save at -1. 16th level they save at -2, all the way up to 28th level where you're having them save at -6. So this is kind of cool if you're a high-level PC or if you're a DM using a high-level caster versus a party to kind of make that high-level caster have a little bit more of an effect. I mean, I know like the other effects of the spells get adjusted by level, but just to save itself, it seems like it'd be kind of neat to like have the really high-level casters have a little bit more of a plus, a little bit more power than the average guy. Now, onto modifiers. Basic has only a wisdom modifier, and only affects like mind affecting things like ESP and charm and all that kind of stuff. First edition, on the other hand, has that wisdom modifier to saves, and also has a dexterity modifier, so you can jump out of the way of things like traps or fireballs or any those kind of things. Now, I like the Castles and Crusades modifiers because they make all 6 ability scores relevant. It's even better than just the dexterity, wisdom, constitution modifiers from D20 type stuff. So I'm going to go through those really quick and what they are. Strength modifies paralysis and constriction, so you use your ability score modifier for that. Intelligence modifies arcane magic and illusion. There's not a lot of arcane magic left after we get rid of all the other modifiers, but there's some, and these are the kind of things where you're just like, I'm too smart for this. There's not really a big golden unicorn here. This isn't happening, dude. Wisdom modifies confusion, divine magic, gaze attack, petrifaction, and polymorph, and that makes sense. You're just like, why am I turning into stone? Dexterity, classic, modifies breath weapons, traps, reflex type spells, anything where you're jumping out of the way. Constitution, pretty classic too. Disease, energy drain, which I know normally you don't get a save versus energy drain in first edition, but it's neat. And poison. And Charisma modifies Death, Attack, Charm, and Fear. So it kind of takes the place of some of the old Wisdom saves. I like this because I'm firmly in the camp where Charisma is a force of will thing. It's not a looks thing. And if you're, somebody with really high charisma, you just think too highly of yourself and you've got too much force of will. And when somebody's trying to charm you or kill you with like a death magic, you're like, this is not happening to me. I am way too important. So I like that. Now, one other thing, I've posted on some forums that I use the Dragon 80 save tables. And what those are tables that came out in 1983, which kind of address the wonky nature of first edition tables, which they're also wonky and basic, where you might have something where a thief goes up, he gets save improvements every 4 levels, and so he might all of a sudden improve by 2 after 4 levels. And the article was kind of like, well, geez, why doesn't he improve by 1 after 2 levels, and then 1 by the other 2 levels? And if he's a cleric improving by 2 after 3 levels, why doesn't he improve by 1 after 2 levels, and then another 1 by the 3rd level? And so that's pretty much what that does. And so it's not so much you have to use the Dragon 80 tables, it's just the idea that you can kind of break up those wonky tables into like bite-sized chunks. And so whenever somebody's kind of eligible for a little bit of a save increase, you give it to them, because that's fair. Likewise, for things like the first edition fighter saving versus breath weapons, it's bizarre. He saves 1 better after 2 levels, then 3 better after the next 2 levels, and that repeats over and over again. Why in the world doesn't he just save 1 better after every level? So that's what I do, and maybe it's off by 1, but who cares? It's a saving throw. You roll the die. Did you save? Did you not? Life goes on. The game goes on. After looking at all this stuff, though, I have come to some different conclusions. I think I may use 6 varieties of save in my game from now on. I might use the categories being poison, toxin-based paralysis, and death magic. Next one being paralysis, magic-based paralysis, petrifaction, and polymorph. So all the body-affecting magics. Breath weapons, little point-and-shoot wands, little guns. Spells, and with just a caveat that like rod staff wands always save it like 1 better. And oh crap moments, traps and whatnot. And I'm kind of working on tweaking that a little bit. But for me, that seems to be like a good list of saves. Hope you enjoy this, and have a good one.